Hey guys, it's Crawford again, and today we're going to talk about generational cycles. The question I want to pose is, did your parents mess up your children? Not just you, but your children. Why? Because those patterns that we pick up from our parents can sometimes translate into ourselves, which affect our children if we're not self-aware and if we don't catch it, or if we're not self-conscious enough to catch the same toxic patterns or generational cycles that are unhealthy for us and do something about them so that we don't pass those things on to our children. So I'll give you an example. My father is very hypercritical and negative, very negative. And I have learned about my late great grandmother, who was hypercritical and very negative, just nasty, like a negative energy boy. And my grandmother, my father's mother, is not like that at all. She's a saint. She's very kind, very giving, very generous, and so is my mother. However, that great grandmother that passed that trait on to my father, passed that hypercritical spirit onto myself and my sibling. And that came out in two different ways. So for me personally, that hypercritical spirit, instead of doing that to other people, I'm hypercritical of myself. And I beat myself up in ways that my parent would have beat me up for, or their parent would have beat them up for. And in my sibling, that hypercriticalness goes out into the world, and it becomes criticism toward other people and their inability to ever be or live up to a standard. And I can say that I have that same issue for myself. Like, it's hard for me to live up to the standard that I have for myself, but I continuously try. But I still struggle with hypercriticism. But I wanted to make sure that even with that being internalized, that I did not pass that on to my children, so that I don't become hypercritical of them, and that I don't teach them as well to be hypercritical of themselves, so that they get to a place where they're depressed, or they hate themselves, or they practice perfectionism and never can live up to the standard that they have for themselves, which ultimately lowers self-esteem and self-confidence. And I had a long-term relationship with someone who I wanted and talked about breaking that cycle with the children. And this person had children before our relationship, and there would be sometimes discussions about what that person wanted for their children, and thinking about how that affected me in my childhood, and how my parent wanted certain things out of me, and that if I did not live up to this certain standard, that I felt like I wasn't enough, which translated to my relationships. And I don't want a child to grow up under my care thinking that I have this certain standard for them, and that if they don't meet that standard, that they're not enough, that they're not lovable, that they have to keep working to reach that standard, or to ever feel that way about themselves. So catching that toxic trait and that cycle that keeps repeating itself in the family is the key to stopping the generational cycles from continuing to go on. But in order to do that, you have to become self-aware. You have to become conscious of the things that you've picked up, from your parents or even your grandparents or their grandparents that you see sprinkled within your family, maybe within your siblings, maybe your aunts and uncles or your cousins are exhibiting these toxic traits or behaviors that maybe everyone has just accepted to be part of the family. Maybe it's something that everyone is just so used to, and maybe it's not so much a formal exception of it, but more of a like, well, that's how it is. That's how life is always going to be. These are the cards that we're dealt, and this is how, we got to deal with this. These are the kind of people that we are, and this is what we have to deal with. And when you become self-aware and you become conscious of the way that you are naturally, that is where your power is, because you can do something about that if you so desire. Now, I am a strong believer in embracing who you are and loving yourself for whoever you are, but you have to decide what is harmful to you and that you want to change about yourself, and what I guess we can say it is what it is. That is a part of you that you're not willing to change, and you're willing to accept, and you're willing to understand that people may not understand you for being that way, and people may judge you or say that, certain things about you because you're that way. And being willing to accept that that's part of who you are, and that's not something that you're willing to change. So being self-aware and being conscious of these things help you to decide what you want to change about yourself and what you want to embrace about yourself. But it all starts there. So that's the word that I have for today. I wanted you to take a moment to think about any of the toxic traits that you may have picked up from your parents or your siblings or other family members or your grandparents, anyone in the family that's been passed on throughout the generations and continues to be harmful to the family, and decide if there's anything about that you want to change, to make a difference for not only yourself but for the next generation to come. Do you want that to affect and be a part of your child's life or your children's life as it was a part of your life? And if not, to do something about it. Of course, I'm going to put the plug in. And of course, if you want to work with me on breaking those generational cycles, you can book a session with me. I have the link somewhere around this video, or you can email me at Shan, like Jackie Chan, CHAN, at beautyofgrowth.com, and I'll be more than happy to help you with breaking some of those generational cycles, because I know they can be hard to do sometimes on your own if you don't have the right tools or you don't have the right guidance, but it is possible with doing the inner work, and I can lead you along the way, and I can guide you along what you need to do the inner work so that you can change those generational cycles if that's what you desire to do. So hopefully you found some value in this video today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you on my calendar, or I will see you in another video. Bye.